My name is Feilim Mac An Iomaire, and as you all know, I'm here to talk to you today about risk. What I'm going to do today, folks, is I'm going to tell you my own story about how I took a risk when I ran into a dead end trying to do something in a conventional method to achieve a goal. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to touch on a few things that I currently do in my professional life where I do take risks. Now, our story starts way back in 2006. I was just out of college and keen as mustard to get into the workforce. So I took my first job that came my way, which was a sales exec in a sales company. And after a couple of years, I ended up selling insurance. This involved me staring at a screen like you see before you here. It's actually not this screen. The name of the program has been seared from my memory through trauma, I'd imagine. But as you can see, I'd be looking at that for 9 hours a day. Pretty much looked like Airtel without the benefit of having football results on it. So not exactly fun. Now, as grateful as I was to have a job, it wasn't something I was truly passionate about. I was working there for 3 years. So in 2009, there wasn't many options elsewhere for employment. So I decided to jump ship and join all the rest of the Paddies down in Bondi Beach in Australia. Now, once there, I was lucky enough to get a job as an entertainment coordinator in one of Sydney's largest hostels. What this involved was me bringing out a load of backpackers, getting them very, very drunk, and showing them a good time. So I was kind of like Van Wilder, but I suppose with a higher BMI index and an Irish accent. Now, what I found working in that job was that I really, really, really enjoyed using the creative side of myself. And I thought to myself that once I finished down there, that I really wanted to use that going forward in a professional capacity. Now, as much as I really loved my time in Australia and the locals' inability to pronounce my name, after the year was done, I decided it was time to come home because, you know, there really is no place like home, and I could do what my mother do my washing from time to time. So I landed back and I jumped straight into the job hunt, and I did absolutely everything that you would expect someone to do who is looking for employment. I read every book I could find on job hunting. I scoured the web to find how best to put together CVs. I scoured the web looking for cover letters. Also, I got in touch with endless amount of employment agencies, sent out a huge amount of CVs, and I also watched an awful lot of Jeremy Kyle and got really, really, really good at Countdown. It's one of the benefits of being unemployed is that you do get to enjoy daytime TV. Now, for as good as I was getting and for as good as my countdown skills were progressing, unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for my job prospects. When I thought about it, I kind of said, right, do you know what? Everyone is actually reading the exact same stuff that I'm reading. They're going to the same websites. They're getting the same advice that I am. So there's kind of this race to the middle. And I thought, how in God's name am I going to stand out if we're all doing exactly the same? So what I thought to myself was, right, I've got to really, really, really think outside the box here. And what I've got to do is I have got to show my skill set rather than keep telling people about it. So I thought about it a couple of days, and the eureka moment came in my mother's Skoda Fabia estate. That's actually not it. That's a photo I got off the internet. No one takes photos of their Skoda Fabia estate. I was giving a pal of mine a lift somewhere, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And if anyone here has been unemployed, you all know that if you're unemployed for any length of time at all, the first thing that people always ask you, and it does grate you because you do get it asked it the whole time, is how's the job hunt going? And they do. They ask out of goodness, they ask out of kindness, they ask out of genuine concern. But you've answered it about 20 times already that day, and you don't want to hear it. But whatever the mood was on me that day, I just turned around to him and I said, "Do you know what? The best chance I have of getting a job is actually putting up a billboard." And we both laughed, ha ha ha. And after a while, I kind of thought, "Do you know what? That's actually not a bad idea." Now, as any Skoda Fabia owner will tell you, it's not often that magic moments happen inside them. So I kind of thought there's something special going on here. So I decided, you know what, let's go through with this and let's start forming a plan together. Now, I'm from Connemara. I'm an immensely proud Gaeilgeoir, and I'm hugely proud of my Animas Gaeilge. But I am the first person to admit that the name Feilim Mac An Iomaire doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. So what I decided to do was I thought I would follow in the footsteps of a number of other Irishmen, such as Bono, The Edge, that gobshite off the Sunday Game, and give myself an alias. Now, it needed to be absolutely clear that I was not only Irish, but desperate for employment. But with the name Brian McFadden already taken, I decided I'd settle on Jobless Paddy. Now, this is back in 2011, so you have to think in 2011 the recession was at its worst, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to come up with a image that would kind of represent my reluctance to be forced to join the hordes of people that were forced to immigrate. Luckily enough, I came up with the concept very, very quickly. And thankfully, through volunteers such as Caroline Walsh from the Spittle Photography Club, who was kind enough to jump down to Silver Strand with me one evening and get this photo of me holding my hurl in my suitcase. And Michelle Cunningham, who was a friend of mine who's a graphic designer, she did all the design work here. And I also had a bit of a helping hand from an Indonesian chap who did all those illustrations in the back. I did approach an Irish designer about doing those illustrations. I was quoted €2,000 for them. And in the end, I found this Indonesian chap on a freelance website who did them for like $90. So it was a bit win-win. It was pretty much all my budget otherwise. Now, next up, my next problem was I had to convince the owners of the billboard that I wasn't completely mental, which was more difficult than it sounds. Now, after a number of phone calls, I eventually managed to convince them. And fortunately enough, I had about a 3-week lead time then before the billboard actually went up. So I had 3 weeks. So in that time, what I decided to do was I thought I'd brush up on my social media skills. This is back in 2011. Social media was growing all the time. It wasn't quite the beast that it is now, but I really felt that I was going to need it to kind of drive my message out there, to gain cut through in the media and to get through to employers. So here I am. This was the execution itself. Now, D-Day came back in early June 2011, and to say I was bricking it was an understatement. I was terrified. I thought, what if this thing is going to be misinterpreted? What if it doesn't gain any cut-through? What if the public don't notice? What if the press don't notice? And most importantly, what if any potential employers don't notice? But within a couple of hours, it turned out I really, really, really shouldn't have worried. Within the first few hours, I had done an interview with the Irish Times, with the Journal.ie. It was on Broadsheet. I was on Rick O'Shea's show on Today FM. And then I got a phone call from RTE to appear on their main evening news that day. Now, a lot of people don't believe me when I say this, but I really didn't expect it to go so viral early. The idea was to kind of remain anonymous for a few days to kind of elongate the story and all of that, but it certainly wasn't the case. And for those of you who don't believe me, just look at the state of me in this photo. I never quite looked so disheveled. I basically I'm not sure if I even showered that morning, and for that reason, this photo certainly hasn't found its way onto my Tinder profile. Now, the following day, I was interviewed by the Associated Press, and the story went absolutely crazy. It went everywhere. It got the kind of press coverage that's normally reserved for, like, Kim Kardashian's ass, to be honest. You can see there was all sorts of, you got La Repubblica, Le Monde, Sydney Morning Herald. There's this little green thing down here, which I think is Malaysian, but I have no idea. I just got it from Google Alerts that they mention my name. Russia Today, Bild, and all sorts of other places like CNN. For the first couple of days, I was doing about, I'd say, 40 interviews every day for the first 3 days before I actually had to turn off the phone and say, do you know what, I've actually got to do job interviews now, so let me cut into it. Now, in terms of a reaction, it was absolutely overwhelmingly positive from the public, and I got so many nice words and really nice emails, and people tweeting me and writing on Facebook from people who had their own stories, like mothers who had lost sons and daughters to immigration, people who had moved abroad, who were living in New York, and they were forced to leave through no choice of their own. Saying that my message really, really resonated with them, and it was overwhelmingly positive. Just to give you a few examples, I suppose. Someone give that man a job. I would if I could, said someone on the journal. Féilim, just had to send you a message to say well done for using your brain and trying to avoid leaving Ireland. I wish I could offer you a job, but I can't. But I can say well done. Brian Kennedy, the singer fella. I still laugh at that. I just think it was so nice of him. He's just been on 2FM. Excellent idea, if you ask me. And it sounded from his interview that he'd already been abroad and has returned to settle, but is finding it difficult to gain employment. Fair play, Paddy, said someone on broadsheet.ie, which is pretty good, because normally on broadsheet they're really sarky. And I'm proud of you, Féimi. That was my mom. Now again, it's like she's the most Irish mammy in the world. Like I'm now 30 years old. I contribute to a pension. I shave every couple of days, and she still calls me Féimi. But as all well and good it is for me to stand up here and tell you all the great and nice things that people were saying about me, as with any risk, you're going to get a bit of abuse. And it's a lot more entertaining to look at that. So, here goes. Prime example of social media douchebaggery, said someone on broadsheet. Now we're on the real broadsheet users. Wanker, said someone in a tweet. He would have been better putting that money into Google AdWords than a billboard, on the journal.ie user. You just know that person sounds nasally when they're talking. Well, would you look at if it isn't the asshole with the placard off the television? That was one of my mate's dads. I think it was said in jest, at least I hope so. Yeah, another person who adds absolutely zero value to the country and is lauded as the best example of entrepreneurial youth. This country needs people who make stuff, not another marketing parasite that just pushes your own money about. That's a journal.ie user. What makes you so special, you fake tan-wearing gobshite? Fuck off back to Oz. Now, most of this I can take, but I found the fake tan job particularly cutting. I just want to put it out there on record. I know this has been filmed, so I'm just going to say I have naturally sallow skin and I have never used fake tan in my life. I'm fully aware of the irony of the situation. I do look like an overweight member of the Jersey Shore cast at the minute. But the reason is I literally have just come back from Spain. So if we can put the fake tan rumors to bed, I would really, really appreciate it. But most importantly, the reaction from potential employers was fantastic. There's me in an iffy wearing my blouse. Again, this was the be-all and end-all. This was the aim of the whole thing. And within a couple of weeks afterwards, I had done about 70 interviews with a host of Irish and multinational companies. It was exhausting, but it was both exhausting and exhilarating. And I don't think I will ever be intimidated by a job interview again in my life, so it will probably stand to me in future. Now, I had about 20 firm offers coming out of the process, but in the end, I chose these guys. Paddy Power, a company who know a thing or two about risk. Now, a lot of people always ask me, why is it that you chose Paddy Power? And there were a couple of reasons. Firstly, in my interview there, my main interview was with Ken Robertson, who used to be their head of mischief, is now their head of brand engagement, and Paddy Power himself. I've always been a huge fan of their brand, and I had a bit of time after that interview to sit down and kind of pick their brains on a few of the campaigns they had done previously, and I was just like a proper fanboy. It's embarrassing in hindsight, you know. I was like, oh yeah, how did you do the Cheltenham sign? How did you do the logos on the hurls? That time you were out in the Vatican when the new Pope was about to be elected. How was that? Blah blah blah. And I really, really liked their way of thinking, and I just really enjoyed all the anecdotes I was hearing about it. Secondly, there were two things that I really, really wanted out of this process. I wanted, one, a job that I would really enjoy, and secondly, somewhere that I thought I would learn an awful lot. And I really felt that this is going to be the case with Paddy Power, and it certainly has been. I know Sundays aren't quite what they used to be now that Glen Rose finished up. But I genuinely don't mind Sunday evenings, and I certainly don't mind Monday mornings. So again, I absolutely adore my job, and I love going in every morning. And I do learn so much every day, not just from my superiors, but it really is a company that empowers its employees, and you're allowed to take your own initiative. So I learn so much from my colleagues every day. And lastly, I'm also allowed to wear runners, and I can qualify dicking around on Twitter as work. So yeah, there's that as well. Now, for those of you wondering, yes, this photo has made it onto my Tinder profile. I do think I look quite good in it. But again, just back on a serious note, I mean, taking all of my life savings and risking it to get a job, it was 100% the biggest risk that I've ever taken. It could have gone completely tits up. I was fully aware of this while I was doing it. But in hindsight, and I always think back of it, I'm so grateful that I actually did make the decision to do it, and I'm thankful for it every day. Now, switching gears a bit, I'm going to talk about taking risks in the day job. As many of you are aware, we don't shy away from controversy in Paddy Power. We like to stir the pot a bit, and I'm just going to talk about a few recent examples before I get into our line of thinking on that. In this case, we took a paramilitary slogan and used this to display our odds while we had two guys in balaclavas, a lovely couple in a loving embrace, kissing on the back of the results. And this one I remember we called it IR Gay. Was the code name. And lastly there, this is one we did back in June. For those of you not familiar with the history of the rivalry between England and Ireland in football, the last time England had played a friendly in Ireland was way back in 1995, 20 years ago. And to say the English made a bit of a Hames at Lansdowne Road would be an understatement. They tore the place apart. So what we did was we yob-proofed it by throwing bubble wrap all around it. Now, a question I get asked the whole time is there a line? And there 100% is a line when it comes to our marketing. But the truth is we always want to be very, very close to that line, which inevitably means we'll fall over it from time to time. Are there rules and restrictions? Yes, there are, but very few. The main one being financially. But in terms of rules, we have two rules. Rule number one is no one gets arrested. And rule number two is don't piss off ISIS. Now, with everything that we do, the primary aim is to entertain rather than offend. But no matter what you do that's in any way edgy, whether it be a joke, whether it be a stunt like this, whether it be an ad campaign, whether it be a stand-up routine or a song, if it's in any way edgy, it's going to cross someone's line in the sand, and it's not going to be their cup of tea, and we fully accept this. But you know, Paddy Power have been at this for as long as they've been around. It does help differentiate the brand. And do you know what? I wouldn't bet on them stopping taking risks anytime soon, and I certainly wouldn't have it any other way. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Feilim Mac An Iomaire. Gur míle maith agaibh. Slán go fóill.